Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving deep into one of the most powerful recent conversations on the Joe Rogan Experience. Joe sits down with Dr. Chris Masterjohn, a leading researcher with over 2 decades in nutritional biochemistry, to dissect the true drivers of health and disease. And the answer isn't what you think. Their discussion is centered on one radical idea, that almost every aspect of your health, from energy levels and anxiety to aging and disease, comes down to the function of tiny organelles inside your cells, your mitochondria. And in this episode, you'll learn why your favorite recovery supplement might be a waste of money and why an 80-year-old gymnast can be healthier than a 40-year-old cyclist. Full interview link is available in the description. Let's start with a holiday tradition. After Thanksgiving dinner, everyone blames the tryptophan in the turkey for their food coma. Masterjohn says this is one of the most stubborn nutritional myths out there.
Came from researchers journalists in the 80s who were trying to come up with a reason to explain why everyone was tired on after Thanksgiving meal. And they just looked as far as, turkey has tryptophan, which is an amino acid that is the precursor to melatonin, which is, you could call it a sleeping chemical. So it makes you get tired at night. That must be why. But it turns out that turkey's not that high in tryptophan, like even whey protein is higher in tryptophan than turkey is. And then B, tryptophan doesn't make you tired.
The truth is far simpler, and it's a lesson in biology. That overwhelming post-meal exhaustion is your body's rest and digest parasympathetic system kicking in after gorging yourself. It's not a single amino acid. If mitochondria are the power plants of your cells, they eventually need maintenance. Dr. Masterjohn's research points to the deepest form of rest we can achieve as the key to this process.
I think that the crowning thesis of my work so far is that we really want to be thinking about mitochondrial function at the root of all health and disease. And so I think an interesting way to see sleep is it's like, why do we have to sleep 8 hours a night? And I think with dreaming, there's obviously other things going on there, but deep sleep, one of the primary things that's happening is you need to give your mitochondria a rest because your mitochondria are what produce all the energy that you need for producing everything in your body.
You can think of deep sleep as the time your body lowers its entire metabolic rate to build up energy reserves and allow the mitochondria to repair and recharge from the previous day's work. Creatine has long been known as a muscle supplement, but new research is revealing its profound role in brain health, particularly when you're running on empty. It acts as the ultimate energy distributor for the whole body.
Now there is, mitochondria are the powerhouse of the cell, or the power plant that's producing the energy. Creatine is like the power grid, and it distributes that energy throughout the cell. And so if the purpose of sleep is to restore the energy that you used up, but then you intervene by putting creatine in there, now you can keep that energy going and you can go more.
Creatine essentially boosts the body's capacity to deliver energy on demand. This explains why it can protect the brain during sleep deprivation, and it even helps double the rate of healing from traumatic brain injury. Methylene blue is gaining traction as a mitochondrial booster, but Masterjohn warns that it's a double-edged sword. He uses a fantastic traffic analogy to explain why you should probably get tested before you use it.
Let's say there's a main road in the city, and it's the best road, and that's why everyone's on it, but it's blocked, and then they set up detours. People they're going to help the traffic because that road is blocked. You actually can't get through there. And so the side roads that would take you somewhere are actually better because they're not blocked, right? So in the context where you need the detours help you. But if the main road was not blocked and they start putting up detour signs and people start going out in the side roads, they're not going to get to their destination faster. They're just getting tricked by the mess, the chaos that was created by people putting up detour signs that they didn't need. So methylene blue is something that goes into your mitochondria and sets up detour signs all over the place. And
Methylene blue forces electrons down alternate paths. If you have a blockage, it's a lifesaver. If your main road is clear, you're just introducing chaos, making your mitochondria less effective at creating usable energy. The inevitable decline of aging isn't a sudden event. It's a slow, steady drain on your cells' ability to maintain themselves. This process is driven by the very engines we've been talking about.
As people age, starting around age 18 through age 70 to 80, you're losing your mitochondrial function at an average rate of 1% per year. So by the time you're 70, you have half the energy that you started out with that baseline. And that I think what explains that is just the vicious cycle of the mitochondria they lost 0.25% here, 0.25% there, and they just started repairing themselves less effectively because they're the engines fueling everything, including that. And so, but the good news is that age only explains 25% of mitochondrial function. So it's the average that's going down at 1% per year. The average person is producing half the energy at age 70 than they were at age 18. But the spread around that is huge. And with that, to me, the way that I spin that means that 75% of this is under your control.
Aging is arguably mitochondrial dysfunction. The compounded effects of injury, illness, and poor nutrition slowly chip away at your capacity, but you have the power to slow that decline significantly. If you're not taking creatine, should you be? Master John gives a surprisingly practical rule for when to consider supplementation, based on how much meat you consume.
Everyone who's not eating 1 or 2 pounds of meat per day should probably be taking creatine. And you can think of it as if you're eating red meat and you're eating it rare, you can err on the side of 1 pound. And if you're eating, and I would include as red meat salmon, which is like a reddish fish and is actually quite high in creatine. If you're eating white meat, white fish, and you're eating it well done, you want to err on the side of 2 pounds because they don't have as much creatine, then you cook the creatine out of them, and you wind up with much lower.
Master John emphasizes that getting creatine from whole food is ideal. If you're a vegan or simply don't eat enough meat to hit that 2-pound minimum daily threshold, strategic supplementation becomes a necessity. When you wake up, your mitochondria are still on a nap. To kickstart your energy metabolism for the day, there is a simple, non-negotiable hack that tells your body it's time to ramp up.
When you wake up in the morning, I said before that your mitochondria have not gone to sleep literally, but they've really slowed down. It's like they're on a nap. And there's a transition when you wake up where the mitochondria have to say, oh, you've woken up. Now I need to wake up and I need to start producing more energy. And sunlight going into your eyes, being translated into your brain, is the signal that actually tells your brain to organize that. And so what happens as a result of that is that signaling helps your mitochondria adapt and start producing everything, and it actually helps them adjust. And if you don't have the morning sunlight, you're going to have your mornings full of suboptimal energy metabolism that is initiating that vicious cycle of aging.
This is about more than vitamin D. It's about a direct signal to the brain that organizes your metabolic transition from sleep to activity, ensuring your energy output is optimal. A recent study on longevity in professional athletes revealed a shocking result. The athletes with the longest lifespans weren't the endurance guys. They were gymnasts and pole vaulters.
You had gymnasts and pole vaulters with 8 years on the population. And you've got cyclists and of course you've got sumos. Sumo wrestlers are 10 years below. And you have a lot of sports that have high injury rates that are, especially a lot of stuff that has impacts to the hands, martial arts and things like that, where probably the sport itself and its impact on training your body's energy systems is positive, but just the injury rate is taking you out. So you're kind of like you're kind of in the middle. You're very close to the general population. Cyclists only have 2 years on the general population. And so what I thought was interesting, I think a few things are interesting about that. So first of all, there's a lot of people in the longevity space are taking most of their information about how they should train for longevity from people who specialize in cycling.
Really?
And so, I'm not going to name names, but there's, there's the people out there who are, that's where it's coming from. And it makes a lot of sense that cycling is, it's good for cardiorespiratory fitness. There's a lot of data that having good cardiorespiratory fitness is a key factor for longevity. But when you look at a study where gymnasts and pole vaulters have 6 extra years on the cyclists, and the cyclists only have 2 extra years on the general population, I'm like, what, it's not all about the cardiorespiratory fitness. And
the takeaway here is that whole body functionality, agility, coordination, and strength training, not just cardiovascular fitness, are massive drivers of mitochondrial and neurological health that contribute to a longer life. Master John argues that most people in the longevity space are making a critical mistake. They are reverse engineering old age instead of optimizing for peak function when they are young.
You want to have good bone mass when you're 75. The most important asset you could possibly have is to have really good peak bone mass when you're 25, right? So I really think that, like, it's just like I said before, you might not think memorizing a string of 25 numbers is important at any age, but if you're going to have really awesome peak memory, that gives you a lot of room to decline later on. Whereas if you're trying...
The best defense against decline is a massive offense. Focusing on building the highest possible peak physical and cognitive capacity in your younger years gives you the largest buffer zone for inevitable age-related decline. How do you actually know if your mitochondrial function is optimized? Forget blood panels. Master John provides 2 surprisingly simple North Stars for true, abundant health.
A really good definition of health for me is you should be abundantly supplied with all the energy that you need to fulfill the goals that you're trying to fulfill, and you should be adaptable enough to be able to handle things changing that were out of your control or your own purposeful changing. And I think the North Star for you to see when to know that you are healthy is that your energy to anxiety ratio is very high and your libido is very strong.
And true health isn't just about having energy, it's about controlling it. Anxiety is often wasted energy that could have been used for productivity, making this ratio a powerful personal gauge. The debate over seed oils is huge, but Master John points to overlooked long-term studies to explain why they are dangerous. The issue isn't immediate, but cumulative, with a long, insidious latency period.
Because it actually takes you 4 years just for your tissues to start looking like the seed oil you're eating. Like if you switch from butter and olive oil today and you go on corn oil, it's going to take 4 years for your tissues to fully look like the corn oil. And then once that happens, you've got secondary effects. So you start getting your vitamin E levels depleted much faster. But it takes a while for the vitamin E levels to go down in order for other effects, other results of that, like the increased vulnerability to the tissues being destroyed. All that stuff is like you're not even starting to see it until 5-6 years go by. And so I think that's the big reason that there's so much controversy, is that for whatever reason, there's some people who just don't want to look at the older trials that were very long. And
these oils replace better fats in your tissues, leading to chronic inflammation and vulnerability to damage. Because the effects take years to manifest, short-term studies miss the entire picture, creating false controversy. The entire conversation boils down to 3 powerful takeaways for longevity. First, focus on the foundation. Your mitochondrial function determines your health span, and 75% of that is under your direct control. Second, food first, pharma. Last, naturally create a state of metabolic abundance by prioritizing nutrients like creatine and iodine from whole foods, like eating organ meats, before reaching for supplements or drugs. Third, the statin paradox. As Master John states, drugs like statins are mitochondrial toxins. Building a robust energy foundation should always come first before resorting to treatments that may undermine the very system you're trying to save. What are you doing today to protect your peak physical and cognitive capacity? Let us know in the comments below. Like this video, subscribe for more breakdowns, and hit the notification bell.